So who am I? I've been licensed for 3 years, currently living in Haliburton. Spent my childhood in Muskoka, Stevens Bay, Lake Muskoka, and they're completely different markets. And I'm going to briefly talk as well about Kawartha as an option for your clients. Very different topographies, very different areas, and they all have strengths and weaknesses. Currently, I'm still a high school teacher. I teach music and history at the Haliburton High School, and I've gone on a partial leave where I can divide my day between the mornings teaching, and the afternoons real estate. So just briefly here, I don't want to be too much on my website, but I think it's always good to kind of just identify what motivates us and why I've switched from education to real estate. Hello.
Morning.
My name's Ryan. Thanks for being here.
I'm Carol.
Hi, Carol.
I'm Carol. How are you?
I'm well, and all your colleagues are behind your computer there.
Hey, Carol.
Yeah.
Hey, Carol.
Hi, everybody.
So what motivates me and what's kind of pushed me to get into real estate is my family. And if you just, I'm not going to expect you to read that. My family has pushed me to provide for them, but also extend and establish relationships with people to help them through their real estate journeys. So my motivation is my family, and that helps propel me into other relationships in our lives, in our professional lives, which have been very fruitful in the last 3 years. So my board is the Lakelands, and the Lakelands makes up, we've just joined with Georgian Bay. So I've just brought up just the map here. I'm not going to show you many listings, but obviously you know north of Toronto, Georgian Bay to the left, Muskoka in the middle there, and Haliburton. I had never been to Haliburton until I moved there in 2009. Is this general area here, and I think there's a huge value in Haliburton as being a focal point for some of your clients who may want to unlock some of the equity in their houses if they don't have too much of a mortgage on it. But the last 2 years, that's what's been happening is people have been acquiring property in Haliburton sight unseen, which is obviously not good advice. And a lot of Toronto agents have been coming up the day of putting an offer in, one of 15 offers, and walking away with a deal or walking away without the deal 7 days later. So that is no longer the case. We have people that are helping agents in the city. Hi.
Morning, come here, sorry.
Morning.
Great. Anna?
Anna, hello.
Anna and Paul.
Hi there.
You already started? Or
Yeah.
Just started
Just
2
started,
minutes
yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
got no time. Sorry for
No problem.
disruption.
Yeah, of course. I'm just laying out the 3 different areas that I cover. So Muskoka, Haliburton, and Kawartha.
Your kingdom.
No, not yet. I'm trying to create the empire. But just the main message today is I'm trying to establish relationships with agents in the city, specifically your brokerage, to help work with you, work with me, and work with our clients to open up cottage country to your clients. So one of the benefits that Haliburton has is that the listing prices are a lot lower than Muskoka. Kind of see a show of hands if you're familiar with Muskoka as an area destination. How about Haliburton County? Okay, yeah, I think I remember that from our conversation. Kawartha?
Yep.
Okay, Kawartha, okay. How would you agree that there's a difference in lake quality in those 3? What descriptors would you say would describe the difference? Like what if I say Kawartha Lakes, what do you think of? Weedy.
But what we mean like the
Weedy.
quality of water?
It's weedy.
Yeah, just the topography, the water, the shoreline. And I'm speaking in generalities. I'm not being specific that Kawartha is this, Haliburton is this, and Muskoka is this. But I come across these conversations when I have clients looking at all 3. And there are some lakes in Haliburton that are great and that aren't, and there's some lakes in Muskoka that are great and that aren't. But the Trent Severn waterway in Kawartha is a flooded waterway so there's weeds, there's fields in Sturgeon Lake that actually have farm foundations in them because it used to be farmland, and when they created the dams, they flooded it. So I largely stay away from Kawartha Lakes. It is somewhat closer to the GTA, so that is a huge benefit to people that are moving and driving from Toronto or east of Toronto to move up. There's also a benefit of being on the Trent 7 waterway if you're into boating, so that's a huge plus. Whoops.
Kawarthas is big for fishing.
Yes, great fishing, although people I've talked to said the fishing compared to 20 years ago is really quite different for whatever reason. I'm not too sure. Haliburton County has some great options for your clients. So these are just we have some pretty strong cachet lakes. Now, if the Muskokas has Lake Rosso, Lake Joseph, Lake Muskoka, and Lake of Bays, I'm sure I'm missing a couple. Our main lakes are Drag Lake here, if you can see my cursor. Drag Lake here. This is my little small lake right there. We have Boschkung Lake and 12 Mile Lake chain, which is a huge attraction. We have these 3 lakes here that are Maple Lake, Beach Lake, and Rice Lake. Eagle Lake up here is where Sir Sam's Ski Club is. You can kind of see the ski hills right there. And what's growing now in popularity is Haliburton Lake. Really weak cell phone and internet signals, but that's increasing with the provinces putting a lot of money into broadband up there. And if you looked at the size of the houses and cottages they're building up there, people are building with the idea that either they don't care that there's not a lot of broadband or they're expecting it to change. Redstone is, these 2 lakes, Kinesis and Redstone, would be the equivalent of some of the Muskoka lakes in terms of the picturesque, the rock, the open water, and the cottages that are up there reflect that. So if you look up here, here's one for 3,475. I'll just click on that just to show you kind of what it looks like. And I'm not sure the type of buyer who's buying this either as a recreation or an investment or to enjoy with their family. But this has been in the market. It was on the market last year, so it's not selling for whatever reason, and I think last year it was listed at $4 million. But that's a cachet lake right there. Kinesis, Redstone, Fort Irwin. But one of the benefits of Haliburton is we have hundreds of smaller lakes that are attractive for your traditional style of cottaging. So not the big boats that you'd see on Lake Muskoka and Lake Rosso. Lots of great canoeing and recreational lakes. Little Hawk Lake here is, I would say 2/3, definitely more than half, boat access. They haven't developed the road systems into these, and they probably won't, because Haliburton has a lot of, and they don't have the money with municipal taxes, because there's a very low tax rate for cottagers in this area. There are no development fees for building brand new cottages, unlike Muskoka. So for that reason, a lot of these lakes, I shouldn't say a lot, some of these lakes are landlocked, but they're great options to have for a low price in some of these lakes. Just to give you context of where we are, sorry if I'm just moving around too much. Dorset, which is Muskoka, is right there. We're just south of Dorset. And Bracebridge just to the left there. It's about an hour from Carnarvon, not quite an hour from Carnarvon to Bracebridge. So I'm not sure if you have clients that are looking for an investment or for recreation, but my main message for today is to open your mind up to Haliburton as an option to get into cottages that are below $1 million, where they could either enjoy it or make their next moves. So what are some of those next? Yeah.
Just a question, because you would say either for like recreation or investment.
Yeah.
What do you mean by an investment? Like that
Sure.
you buy, let's say, investment property, and then what, you rent it or?
Exactly. Well, yeah, and there are many ways you can make it an investment on a property. If you sit on it and just speculate for 10 years. Yeah, I'm talking specifically Airbnb. So a lot of people are buying cottages in Haliburton for Airbnb or Vrbo, or other platforms to rent out specifically. The cottages that you can find in Haliburton are, I'm just going to bring one up, I would say are rustic, and there's a lot more rustic cottages in Haliburton than there were on Muskoka. I grew up on Stevens Bay, which is right here, and I don't think there's one surviving cottage there anymore that's not 10 years old. They've all been replaced. Haliburton has a massive amount of old cottages built post-war on cinder blocks. I'm just gonna see if I can bring one up here that I know for sure. Excuse me, guys. So here's one here. 729. So this is, I'm actually going to be listing this guy's neighbor very soon. So 729 gets you on a 3-lake chain. It's been on the market for 5 days. Taxes are somewhat low, $2,312. My mother in Lake Muskoka for a teardown was $11,000 in 2019. So major tax benefits there. Small acreage, 0.5 of an acre and about 100 feet of shoreline, which is a difference between Muskoka and Haliburton. There aren't that many lots in Haliburton that are bigger than 110 feet of shoreline. But just want to bring you some of these. So for 700 and change, you have a cottage here that looks like it has a foundation there, so maybe a basement. This would be something that you could rent out with ease. Nice and clean, wood stove. The insurance policies on wood stoves is about a $40 premium a year, as per my conversation with my insurance company up there. So they're not, it's not too much of a stigma when you have a fireplace or a stove in there. So you can see that it's quite nice. Not a lot of room. It's called Long Lake for a reason. The lake opens up laterally, but this may turn off a buyer because of the proximity to the view, but the lake itself opens up into a wider lake. And I would just position that if you're boating and you want open water lake access, it's just down the lake. Excellent fishing in this lake. Really close to the road, so ease of access. Year round. You can kind of see there's the neighbor's dock. This dock and the other neighbor's dock would be over here. So there's trade-offs. Right, and if you find a lot that has more frontage, there's going to be a price adjustment on that depending on the quality of the building itself. Any questions at this point before I continue?
Yeah, just like especially this winter we had some issues like so how like what is it like the system of cleaning roads? Let's say I understand the major roads obviously they are clean as soon as they can do it, but then you go because we were showing some properties there, and as soon as you go into a gravel like kind of road. We had some issues, but it was relatively clean. I wonder how this thing is quickly, apart from private road, this is another story. So
Where were you?
We were in Kawartha
Kawartha
2 weeks ago, showing 6 houses. We started actually from Brock, and we were going like.
And then Sturgeon Lake, like the all kind of.
And our clients like very much one of this homes, but the concern is that he has to be every day, 5 days a week, in Markham at 7 a.m. in the morning.
So this
and he
concern was
said,
the roads.
what is going to happen if we have big snow in winter? And how do they maintain the roads over there?
So in Haliburton County, and there's the hub right there. That is Haliburton Village, just in the middle there. The municipal plowing is the third biggest tax burden. OPP, fire, and then the roads. In my experience, the roads are plowed with reasonable frequency after a major snowstorm, and then maintained very well. When you get into private roads, the road associations need to make sure that they hire the reputable contractors to do it. There are some ones I would recommend, there's ones I wouldn't recommend, for lots of reasons. Because of damage to property or just reliability to plow. So depending on the road association, you want to get an understanding who's plowing the road, talk to the neighbors, because every municipality is different. I'm a little bit surprised to see that Kawartha has an issue. There's a major
No, we don't know if they have issues.
Oh, he was just wondering.
Okay. Yeah,
We didn't know how to answer.
This is just the beginning. We start working with them, and they are trying different areas. Unfortunately, we have to find something closer to Markham because he's not willing to drive longer than 1 hour 10 minutes. So I think we have to forget about Kawartha anyways.
Well, I would have. It's interesting to hear you say that because I would have thought that Kawarthas would have been one of the best options for your client in terms of proximity. Most people that go up from Markham go up Highway. Oh, it's been a while. 48, Highway 48 to Highway 12, and then they
that's
up here. And then
Highway 115 is perfect.
and 115 in
It's
Peterborough,
great.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if you have the 407, you're whipping across the 407 with ease to the 115 and going up through Peterborough. And that is too far for your client to get to Markham?
Too far to Markham. He said that he's not willing because we were checking on Google Maps how much time is
Yeah.
going to take for him. So whatever is close to 1 hour and a half, it's too much.
Okay.
It's like 3 hours every day in the car. 1 and a half in the morning, 1 and a half.
And it
Yeah.
sounded that
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
cheap, like in other words, he said,
And he wants Cottage.
pay for.
No,
for,
it's
for
not
seven.
about the cottage.
Oh.
It's normal house to
Oh, okay.
rent. And they don't even really care about the lake view,
Yeah.
being on the lake. They are not so crazy about
Just
water.
no
But
neighbors.
no neighbors
Okay.
on left, no neighbors on
Then-
right, and have a beautiful and newer, like it would be ideal from 0 to 5 years old.
Yeah, I would suggest that there are lots of options south of Peterborough in that Little Britain area. Some of those
We were
rolling.
in a
Yeah.
Cork
Yeah.
Yeah.
My comment is you're looking in the right area. If that's what he wants, east of Toronto, northeast of Brooklyn is kind of where he wants to be, especially the 407, the 115. He's not going to get many other options going west to Caledon, Price Point, crossing the 401 corridor is always a mess. I think you're looking in the right area, and I think the roads, if they're municipal roads, they're very good. I was just going to make a brief comment that there seems to be a huge topography difference here when you get, it's called the land between in Aboriginal lore, that the land between the Canadian Shield and the St. Lawrence lowlands here,
Yeah.
there's a huge change in geography, topography, but also weather systems. So I came from ice on lakes this morning and melting snow, but still tons of snow.
Yeah.
As soon as you cross, I guess it's Severn Bridge on Highway 11, moving east into Norland and Kinmount and such, it changes. The trees change, the rock changes from granite to limestone, hardwood to cedar, and the fields, they warm up and they melt quicker, right? And the wind blows. So I'm feeling that his access would be okay.
Because we Kawartha have a like nicely stone, like a little like a rocky.
Yeah,
shore.
limestone. Almost all
yeah.
limestone.
And also, there's an interesting thing because I had a friend who had a cottage on a pigeon meadow,
Yeah.
and he was just like just 5 meters from the water, and then can you imagine he blow up a little bay?
Yeah.
But he said that now I think the city doesn't allow you to touch the shore. Like if you can blow the rock to
Yeah,
make a
yeah.
little
If you're
bay.
altering because of the fisheries and you can blow sediment,
Yeah.
which they have products. That's something I can also talk to you about. If you have cottages that have a little bit of weeds, you can mechanically move weeds, cut, and you can blow sediment away. But in terms of putting retaining walls or moving rocks around, you're getting into permits in Ministry of
Yeah,
Fisheries.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hope I'm not digressing too much. I think I was here talking a little bit about Haliburton County and just some of the drawbacks of the lakes. If you're getting to Lake Muskoka, bigger lakes, bigger tax base, development fees, there's a cachet kind of tawny attitude of Muskoka that might push people away from Muskoka, like I hear. But some people might want that. I mean, there's always lots of buyers. If you're looking at an investment, Muskoka is already at a height of multiple millions for cottages. Just to give you a price point, we had a beautiful lot. So like think of a cove, sand, rolling granite through the cove, like pink granite, with a boathouse in the cove with a bridge. It was all falling apart. It was all built in the 70s. This is my personal situation. And the cottage was the same, but it was all sand, rippled sand. Crappy cottage. We sold it in 2019 for $1.3 million.
Oh my God.
My widowed mother her nest egg, and we're like, we don't want the cribbing, the patio work, everything. The roots are pushing up the patio stones. Like all this stuff happens with cottages, and you were saying that people are selling, and the demographic is when you realize how hard it is to have a cottage. It's pretty quick. It shows up pretty quick in your, in your wallet or your to-do list to fix these things. So that cottage that my mom sold could have easily gone for double, easily,
Today.
a year later.
Yeah.
So we try not to talk about that in our family too much. She did, you know what? She did well. Like I said, she made some money, and but just shows you the shift that Muskoka has really propelled forward. The money is pushing the lower money out, and they say that about Collingwood too. The billionaires are pushing out the millionaires. To some extent, that's happening in Muskoka, and that's why I'm here to talk about Haliburton. I'm really trying to make the message that you all have clients that might be looking for cottages, might be looking for investments, so Airbnb, or just sitting on something in Haliburton and waiting for the market to catch up, which it is. Haliburton is the same GTA the same distance radius from the GTA. If they were to ever build a 400 series highway east of Lake Simcoe, that is a huge change here for accessibility. Right now, it's just 2-lane road going up and then veering off into Haliburton. But most people, or a lot of people, come the 401 and then up 115. There are some trends happening in Haliburton where people are buying rectangular cottages on cinder blocks for $600,000-$700,000, which 2 years ago would have been crazy, but that seems to be the sweet spot. If you want a nice rectangular cottage that isn't rotting on a 100-foot frontage on a pretty good lake for swimming, boating, you're going to pay about $700,000 to $800,000 now. What people are doing now is they're buying those and they're propping them up and they're underpinning and putting basements in, doubling the size of their cottage. For practical reasons, for just added space. Pardon?
That's very dangerous.
For lots of reasons, but why so? What are you thinking?
Well, because the winter, especially with frost, it'll just shift that underpinning very quickly.
Yeah. So they are excavating a proper foundation.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It'll go.
I'm not a contractor. I don't know. I just know it's being done.
It'll go very quickly.
Okay.
You go up there and it's like when you own a cottage, you got I would pay a guy like $800-900 just to do my roof every winter.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do your roof, as you know, you're going to have a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
There was a place, we got right by the main part of Lake Joe, and the guy twice had his boathouse collapse because of the snow.
A newer boathouse, older boathouse?
No, it was an older boathouse, really well built.
Yeah.
And he had inside the boathouse was one of those very rare antique boats.
Oh
You
yeah.
used to see it at the Gravenhurst every year.
Yeah, the boat
And
show.
the whole thing would just collapse.
Well, you raise a good point there. I'm guessing some people are writing some notes down. I don't have like a presentation for you to see, but you were raising good points.
And also, the big thing with cottage property is and this is where a lot of people make a mistake, is they buy in the middle of the winter and they don't realize that you need 6 feet deep water for your dock. Because the motor, otherwise you have to have the motor pulled up all the time. Every time you go water skiing, you can't land at the dock because the things go woo.
Before I forget, a lot of the lakes in Haliburton County are on the Trent Severn Waterway as well, the watershed, so they fluctuate.
Yeah.
So you start with high water in June, and by September it's low for boating.
It's the same in Muskoka.
Yeah.
Lake Joe goes down quite a bit.
Yes. I know my cottage flooded, boathouse flooded a couple times.
The favorite in the marina, the favorite month for marinas is August, because that's when everyone hits the rocks with the prop.
Yeah. Before I forget, you mentioned snow load. So when your clients buy cottages up there, their insurance in their policy would say that they need to have, if you're gone more than 5 days, then you need to have someone arranged to check on the property. So that's important to know. So there are people up in cottage country that are employed to do this as part of their cottage services, and to remove snow if they can with a snow rake off the cottage itself.
And the new cottages, they have a special furnace. So as soon as because a lot of times with the winter, the hydro gets cut off. And
trees fall on wires.
Once the temperature dropped to 440 degrees, immediately they send out a crew.
Yeah,
because
everyone in,
otherwise,
in Haliburton is employed by
Yeah.
Hydro One.
yeah, they have to send out a crew immediately because otherwise you're gonna
Yeah.
burst pipes and all that stuff.
I'm just noticing on my map here, so Haliburton is my focus, but we're also close to Bancroft, and Bancroft was published last year as being the hot spot for real estate in Ontario. And if you notice the proximity to east of Toronto, a lot of people in this corridor here are looking to Haliburton County for their cottages investments. So if you in Western Toronto have clients that are looking for speculation investments, that could be an opportunity. I know that you probably don't have a lot of clients east of in this area, but does anyone have clients that are looking for cottages or for the cottage
Just
market?
for the regular house,
Okay.
The permanent.
to live there.
Permanent and
Yeah.
okay.
They selling properties here,
Mhm.
two partners, one in Brampton, one in Markham,
Mhm.
with the plan to move there and stay like
Okay.
the regular house
And-
for season.
And work from there.
No.
She's going to work from there.
Yeah.
He's going to be in Markham every day
Okay. Yeah.
for another few years.
I think they'll find something. My personal opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. We're touching on a lot, just kind of here and there, all over the place.
Building permits.
Yeah, building permits. So I've said that in Muskoka there's a building development fee, and a ratio to either the cost of the build. In Haliburton there is none. I just built a royal home on 10 acres, and there was zero development fee. My building permit cost just under $1,000. Yeah. And there's something right there, modular builds. I mean, Royal Homes is a modular build. You wouldn't know it's a modular build. You just look at the one just south of Gravenhurst, and you can see the Royal Home on the side, and they can have you you can sign it, and they'll have the house on your lot in 6 months. Yeah. Cost of building in Haliburton right now is about $500 a square foot for a nice cottage. Any more questions? I mean, we're going to touch on some things as we.
One of the things I always, hydro line, how much it costs to run the hydro from,
So it's 100 feet from the nearest pole
Yeah.
they will do that.
Yeah.
But anything after that, it's big money to add more
Yes.
poles. Yes.
I've gone through that.
Yeah.
Septic wells. This.
So wells, they never guarantee water. They usually do, and they have methods to kind of increase the possibilities of getting water. So fracking the rock to break up more of the water table. But it's about the first 100 feet. They will dig for 100 feet, and that's kind of like what you have to pay them for the 100 feet of digging before, even if they get 50 feet, they're going to charge you for 100 feet of digging. So that's about $10,000 with the well company that we use. There are some places where you have, and then it's $27 a foot on top of that, after that first 100 feet.
But I'm talking about the house which is already built.
Yep.
And well, it's already there.
Yep.
And septic is there.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
what
we
we
just
should.
talking about the conditions. Like,
Yeah.
okay, how would you approach the purchase?
Okay.
You know, like to be a cautious existing house.
Sure.
So probably it would be well,
You want
quality
more-
of water,
Yeah.
septic, how to check.
You would put a clause that the bacteriological test would come back as 0 from a bacteriological
Bacteria.
test, and that's a clause in web forms, which I'm assuming you have web forms, right?
Yeah.
So what that means is, for it to close, the seller warrants that the water quality will come back as a 0, and if it doesn't, which could happen,
Yeah.
that the seller and the buyer will then negotiate the correction of that water through filtration, and usually that's a 50-50 purchase because the seller has to sell something that is working, and the buyer is going to benefit from that, and that could either come off of the sale price or be on top. I just dealt with a transaction where my client, the seller, had a well that was so bad with sulfur that it was almost better to dig a new well, but the buyer didn't put any conditions on the offer. My client had a good conscience that he didn't want someone, he didn't want to have bad karma on himself because it was a deceased daughter's house that he was selling as a estate trustee. So he took money off of the offer, off of the purchase price to correct it, 10 grand.
So it was not exactly this case bacterial
Yeah.
level of bacteria in the water,
Yeah.
but you said sulfur, yes? SO2.
Yeah. Sulfur is salt. If you ask any pump shop or any water, I mean like a water retailer that might employ plumbers, sulfur you can get around. It's a treatment of the water. My personal transaction was so bad that I think we just gave them money and they were going to either dig a new well or it sat basically unused for 3 years and corroded the pipes, and the well itself was so old that it was just a bad thing for everybody. But the offer had no bacteriological clause, so my seller, just out of the goodness of his own heart, gave them money back. But they had no ground to stand on to say, well, the water. What about the water? Septic, you would have to put a clause saying that all septics are in good working order. I try to get my clients to provide the septic inspection from the town, which is held at the town offices. So the septic report, you would call and get that, and they'll send it to you. Septics usually have a lifespan of 20 years or so, but I mean obviously they're longer. I personally had a cottage that just closed last week that it was a septic from the 60s. He never warranted, so we put a clause saying that the seller doesn't warrant. Actually, we're back up. I had a pre-inspection done that identified the septic, and my clause was that the buyer accepts the home inspection and any deficiencies found within as true, and they signed off on it.
So you say the septic would be, let's say, if you put a condition upon quality of the septic, whatever,
Yeah.
working order, that there would be an inspector from the city, or you hire an inspector?
So you should hire your own personal, so when you have a home inspection, that's always the buyer doing that. I paid for my seller to have it done because it was an as-is property. It needed to be marketed as is, so I provided that, and we were very transparent with it. It was an old septic. I put that on the realtor notes that it's a metal septic. You're going to see it because it was still somewhat exposed. But the buyer should be putting in a clause saying that the mechanics of the septic are going to be working, they're in good working order. Ask for the septic inspection from the town, and then they have to do their own due diligence on that. Yes, cottages are sold with 30-year-old septics that are working fine, but you need to be able to do your due diligence on that.
But in this case, in our case, our client's case, this is going to be a newer house.
Yeah.
The same thing should be aware also.
Is it a new home?
Well,
One was
year.
brand new,
Yeah.
and the other one was like two,
3
3
years.
years. So on
And they're not on sewer, they're on septic.
On
They
septic.
should be good.
Yeah.
I would ask for the septic inspection report. If it's brand new, then that would all be with the town. The layout, the site
Yeah.
plan, to make sure that it's done. And if you really want, you can put a clause on due diligence, and you bring in your own inspector to inspect it.
But,
Yeah.
but wouldn't there be 2 building permits for that?
There'd be,
Like there's one permit simply for the septic system, there's one
Yeah.
permit for the property.
yes,
So you should always check the permit on the septic tank.
if they are new homes like this, right?
Yeah, because sometimes people I know Muskoka, sometimes people recondition them and they're garbage. They're garbage.
okay. Yeah, it's that case of buyer beware. You have to put the proper clauses in that allow you to do your due diligence.
Yeah.
And either to the town, what they can provide from the building permit, the septic permit, the septic inspection, and just getting someone there to take a look
Yeah.
at it.
And if this is, let's say, new construction, 1 year old, something, do they have whoever built that? Do they have some kind of warranties, like
There's the Tarion warranty.
Tarion? Yeah.
That a person building their own home doesn't need to have Tarion.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that. If the builder built it for
Builder,
himself,
yes.
then there's no 7-year or whatever the Tarion warranty,
Nice.
which you would have just been studying.
7 for a couple of things, and
Yeah,
it goes down.
it's your stages.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Royal Homes has its own warranty system.
Oh, yeah.
They're gonna say, you call us in 10 years from now, and there's something, we'll fix it, because it's all based on my referral to someone else to build. They want to keep me happy. So yeah. Hope I answered your question.
So these conditions, how long do they normally take to waive?
10 business days usually, depending on the competition in the market. If I had 2 years ago or a year ago, there were no conditions on anything. For a year and a half, there were no conditions because no one would look at your offer because you were one of 15 offers on a cottage. But now you're starting to see reasonable offers come back, and a reasonable period of time for a condition is 10 business days. To have, I usually put a due diligence clause in and wait for the listing agent to ask me, well, what exactly are you looking for in your due diligence clause? But a due diligence is a safe out for your client if there's lots of things. So encroachments, so a bunkie that was built on the same one with the metal tank that I was telling you about, he went and built his kids a bunkie that had no permit, and it was, the corner of it was over the property line. So it was the permit that, not having to build it, the permit that stalled the closing, and it ended up having that the cost of a new, because the town of Highlands East made them take the bunkie down within a period of time, that cost of the bunkie was subtracted from the closing cost of the so you just need to know, ask your sellers, you know, they need to be very transparent with, when you built this bunkie, was there a permit? If not, you don't need a permit for anything, anything smaller than 108 square feet, which I understand Premier Ford has just increased that, but I gotta cross-reference that. I had a builder friend tell me that now in cottage country or in Ontario, specifically cottage country, that's my expertise, you can now build a bunkie without a permit if it's 160 square feet, which is huge. 10 by 16 is a big bunkie, which is great for sleeping and for renting and things like that. Yes.
So for less than 160, you don't need a permit.
For less than 108 square feet, sorry, up until the last year, 108 square feet is what you could build without a permit. I am hearing from the town and from some building friends of mine that the new build more quicker legislation is allowing for 160 square feet without a permit. Now, if you tie that into your septic, then you're going down different paths. A storage shed that is used as a bunkie is kind of what the town wants you to build. They want to see it as a storage shed, but some people use it for sleeping accommodations.
Yeah, just extra gas. But another issue like we had once that, let's say we're going through the kind of road and it was about the right of way.
Yep.
That there was, so we put a condition because in that case, it was some years ago that technically when we asked for that, they couldn't offer any document with saying that it was granted the right of way because we're going through the private property, somebody else's property technically.
Yeah, squatters' rights. Yeah.
So how would you approach this? Like how you would like put a clause of whatever?
Well, if it's a deeded right of way, so I'm just bringing up a
If it is
Geo
deeded,
warehouse
there's no
here.
problem, right?
yeah, if it's deeded, that is fine. And
Yeah, but
That
sometimes they're not deeded.
yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Trying to think of one that had a right of way. Okay, I'll show you the one that I just sold here on Stormy Lake. Here's a nice little lake. Again, not big for boating, but certainly you can whip around a ski tube on there and entertain everyone. So I sold this one here. Whoops. Point Trail. Okay, I'll just leave it with this image here. I'll have her close that. So this one here has a right of way going through the property, which is on the deed, which is on title. So you can't do anything about it. There's someone's road. The road is going through to access all these properties. If there's a deeded access, that just is known, and any lawyer will be able to bring it up, and hopefully you can use Geo Warehouse good enough that you can download the survey and see it on the survey. But then there's other things where it's been known that the neighbor used to go across and it was understood, and I haven't come across any challenges where that has really stalled anything or created friction. I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but cottage country is littered with right-of-ways through properties. Deeded access to lakes over people's property is another thing.
We had this on the first.
So I sold a resort up on Boschkon, and it was this beautiful 7 acre with a sand beach facing west, everything you'd ever want. But there was an instrument to the title that there was a deeded access for the adjacent landowner to use right down the middle of the lawn to the beach.
Yeah.
It was never used, but people who came in to say, so I'm buying this $3 million place and there's a part that someone can use, and it turned a lot of people off. Those exist.
So the due diligence clause pretty much cover everything, right? You can put the cost.
Well, yeah. Hopefully the listing agents are providing the material, they're being transparent. So the survey is posted on documents. You can use GeoWarehouse and pull the documents if they're not done by the listing agent. I would advise that you do that. And of course, the legal descriptions, you can start to see the different parts that are suggesting a hydro or a right of way. We haven't even talked about shore road allowances yet. Does anyone not know what a shore road allowance is? Okay, thank you.
Beautiful.
Okay, Ed, do you want to talk about shore road allowances? Do you know?
No.
You should.
You know, we
No?
have to city snakes here, you know, so.
Yeah, I hope I'm not. Please, I'm gonna look to Julio to kind of gauge my. If I'm talking too much.
No, you're doing great.
Okay.
We're all like paying attention to the.
And you might have. This is straight out of your. I'm sorry, I'm pointing to you.
Yeah,
No, but
I'm fresh.
yeah. So when they surveyed all of southern Ontario, and the concession roads going through to access northern Ontario, they when they hit a lake, they basically put a road allowance around the perimeter of all the lakes where a concession road would have hit to allow for a potential future road allowance to be built along the roads. Not all these lakes have. I might just quickly pause and just see if I can find one that has a. I know I sold one on Boschcon that has a whole shore. It's essentially land between you and the lake that isn't part of the property. So that's a hard conversation to have with your client when you start thinking about the millions of dollars they're potentially spending on or maybe just hundreds of thousands, which is I'm trying to plug Haliburton here a little bit. 12-mile lake, right on 35, wonderful lake. Okay, there we go. So you can see that the lots are just shy of the water. And we know the GeoWarehouse isn't true to the foot, right? There's an overlay of information, so it's somewhat inaccurate. But the shore road allowance sometimes is owned by the. Trying to find the one that I just bought. There's one. The shore road allowance is sometimes owned by the this one here. Originally, he bought this land here. There's the access. His cottage is here on his property, but between his property and the lake, there was unowned or unclosed shore road allowance. Excuse me. He bought his from the municipality for $4,000, which you can do. It's called a minor variance. What does that mean for a person who's buying, let's say, this property here? What that means is when they build their cottage, if it's before a certain time, because there's grandfathered clauses as well, like a deck. If the cottage can't be on the shore road allowance if it's not owned, unless it's really old, and then you might have like a case with the municipality. Certainly, no new builds can be on the shore road allowance unless it's owned. You can't use this size, this acreage to increase the building envelope of your property because you can only build on 15% of your land. So you can't use this land as part of your calculation for it. So there's that limitation. Realistically, no one uses this. People treat it as their property. No one's gonna come and camp on your front lawn. It's not the way. It's kind of like your residential houses where like 6 feet up from the curb is kind of like utility. Well, it's the same thing here. But it's good to know that you can buy your shore road allowance, and that if you can't hang a deck off of your cottage onto the shore road allowance without a minor variance, or you can just go and buy it. Am I clear on that?
We can always buy it?
It's up to the Committee of Adjustments in the municipality.
Okay.
Some municipalities are great to work with. Dysart is great. So Dysart is, Haliburton's broken into 4 counties: Dysart, Algonquin Highlands, Minden Hills, and Highlands East. Minden Hills is notoriously slow and hard. Dysart and Algonquin Highlands are very good and easy to get things done, generally. I imagine that these would be similar to Muskoka and Kawartha Lakes as well.
So how much, like, what is the approach like to the value of that if you want to buy? I'm
It
curious.
certainly, it makes it more marketable and sellable in terms of the value and on your selling price. It would have some positive effect, but the not owning your short allowance doesn't detract from the enjoyment of it, the privacy. It's really, you just want to make sure you have permits and allowances to do what you want to do with that property. Okay. I'm no means an expert. These are just my experiences and my conversations coming
Great,
through
man.
to talk to you guys on this. Sorry, just a boring slide there, or a boring image. I think I'm at the point now, like I was going to talk a little bit about the rental opportunities in Haliburton. I think this one's in Muskoka here, where you can get $2,000, $800 a night for a nice looking, beautiful. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, so if you're buying in Milford Bay, or if you're renting in Milford Bay, which is a cachet part of Lake Muskoka, all of Lake Muskoka is cachet, during prime, so this is July 1st weekend, you could easily be prepared to spend $15,000 a week. Yeah, much more on that lake.
Wow.
So my wife is a property manager. She manages the properties that I sell. Well, my clients go to her; they don't go through me.
Yeah.
And her top earning Bosch Kung property is $1,000 a night in prime season. Yeah.
Yeah, but these are like $4, $5, $6 million houses.
That cottage, sorry?
These are $4, $5, $6 million properties too, right?
No.
They're not-
Do you mind to break this? So
You would
so
never
if I'm
rent, you would
blocking-
never rent a $6 million cottage.
I'm not
Well,
done.
there are some on Airbnb
Well, look
for
at that
like.
one. It's
No.
2800.
Okay,
Never.
so this one
You
here
should get
is a beautiful product. This one here, it would probably rent for a lot higher. This is what I just put the dates in July 1st for the full week, $2,800 a night.
But how much is
Now-
a property like that in Muskoka?
So a property like this, sorry, Muskoka or Haliburton?
That's Muskoka.
This is Muskoka,
Okay.
pretty sure. Yeah, Milford
Yeah,
Bay. So there are a few of these cottages in Haliburton that are on the rental market for similar, because they're on the big lakes. They got the same reasons people are renting them in Muskoka. They're renting them in Haliburton. But Muskoka's got much more public exposure of who's renting it. You want to boat into Port Carling and be part of that crowd from your Indian Point cottage, you're going to pay for that. If you want to have this kind of experience on a big lake, but you're not going to see anybody, that's what Haliburton is. Haliburton's it's similar geography. It's not the same, but it's the big houses, the nice lake system, but they're usually just enjoying the property for itself. Muskoka
It's a lifestyle.
it's a lifestyle to be seen for this style of house, and even bigger than this.
Yeah.
You're spending the money because it's Muskoka.
That's what I'm saying. Like for the ROI,
Yeah.
for a guy to rent this for $2,800 a month,
A
How
night.
much?
A night.
a night,
Yeah.
how much does that cost? A couple $1 million.
Oh, this one would be this is about a $2-3 million. I don't know. I can easily check the Geo warehouse and see what it sold for.
Yeah.
But it would be about a $3 million sale. Muskoka that's like the baseline for luxury in Muskoka is $3 million. It goes up and below for like a lot. A
That's what I'm
nice,
saying. This is that property's got what, 4 or 5 bedrooms?
I'm not familiar.
13
beds,
beds,
14
6
guests, 6
So-
bedrooms.
If you got 6 families in there, that's not a lot. People
Yeah.
think it's a lot of money, but if
But yeah, they wouldn't allow you to have 6 families there.
they do. You got 13
Yeah,
beds.
No, you wouldn't
you
allow
have to
that,
vet
trust me.
your
OPP would be on your doorstep, pulling them out.
yeah. So
they usually say there. How many
yeah.
people
So
you
so
put
what
in
happens
there.
with my wife is Maya when she vets her clients really well for her guests that stay at her client's place. But if someone wants to rent it and the person doesn't vet their guests well enough, one person can make the booking and 3 families can show up, and by the time they're there for a week and the police have come once or twice, their bylaw enforcement, they're not going to kick them out the night of,
Yeah.
but
But for a house like this, it's not a couple renting for a weekend.
you-
right?
No, it would
you
be a
have
couple. No, it would be a couple. It wouldn't
I
be.
don't think so. For
No,
No,
30
how
no,
many
no, you're
bedrooms
not
are
gonna
there?
have double families or triple.
I would
you're not
disagree,
gonna
Ed.
have-
I would.
do. It's 13 beds.
Yeah.
Six
Your
bedrooms.
neighbor's gonna come over with a 12 gauge shotgun, he's gonna shoot you, that's what's gonna happen.
You're getting onto the difficult. The rental market is
You know
not
what's-
a great game for diplomacy in cottage country. You're getting into a lot of neighborly disputes, but the business side of it is these are highly rentable for large families or large groups where the people don't care. It's bringing in the income, or someone like my wife who wants this type of rental used by this type of person only, and she's good at vetting that. But I would
We've
agree
gone
with you.
twice for this houses. One for actually for a wedding party.
Yeah, so I've been to those parties where my friend up in Stony Lake,
Yeah.
where he's rented it and 30 guys have shown up for a weekend, and we respected it, but that's the population of guys that were there.
Yeah.
Not great for the septic, not great for the neighbors.
Too much on the pay-per-view.
But I'm not trying to be disagreeable here, but I am trying to be, from my observations and experience, that the Airbnb markets are, when you're going to rent your cottage on Avon Bay, you're going to get family and friends, and then you can control that mostly. Someone who's using the Airbnb services are maybe not as concerned about how many people are using it. It's the money that they can charge for it.
Yeah.
I was quickly going to just say that in Haliburton, you got $500 a night, $300 a night, and this is I know, I'm sorry you can't see it too much, but this is Kashega-Wigamog Lake, so a very sought after lake chain. Let's look at $700 a night. Can I expand that? Will it expand? Yeah, so you got nice lawn, decent, well, maybe a little bit of a weird house. Can't tell if that's just a half a house line or not, but oh, you know what? That's two house. Yeah, that's
It's an
two.
additional.
It's two roof lines meeting. That's what that is.
So you can see how many tents you can put on a lawn. You know?
So look at this. So they're getting the entire house here. Yeah, tents,
Yes.
dated kitchen, so nothing luxury, but good waterfront. You can boat into the town docks on this lake, and it's and this is July, by the way. I think it's the same dates that I picked up for the other one, and it's $549 a night.
See, 8 guests for that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Do they allow
That's
like
smaller.
boat houses in this area or no?
Great question. You cannot put a boathouse in Haliburton County like you can in Muskoka. There are some grandfathered ones, but those are like your old school single slip with a deck up top or a little like ping pong table space up top.
What about what people are doing in Mississauga now? They put the boat houses inside the property and they have a winch.
Dry land boathouses are
Yeah.
allowed.
Okay.
Yes. Wet boathouses are not.
Okay.
And
But you still have to build within the city limits for the building permit, right?
say that, pardon me?
So you have a on your building permit you have a limit around your property that you can build. You still it's not considered a boat house. Would be considered like a house, right?
Uh-huh.
Like a
Like
freestanding
yeah,
property.
like an auxiliary building.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not too
So
sure.
you still have to be on the 15%. Because for the boat houses,
I
there's
would
an
think
exception
so.
for it, right? Not an exception, but
I don't know. I
I
don't know that.
I don't think it goes in the 15%. It's still, you know,
Residential bylaws are you're allowed to have your house, you're allowed to have 2 auxiliary buildings, and of those auxiliary buildings, you can have 1 private cabin above one of those auxiliary, so a garage.
Yeah.
And that garage has a maximum square footage and a minimum square footage. I don't know where the boathouses come into that. I doubt it would make a big deal. The dry line boathouses I've seen are exactly what you described. They winch up the boat up,
Yeah.
and there's life jackets.
Yeah,
and
there's
stuff.
a bunch of them in Mississauga now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
in Mississauga.
If
Oh, I
you
guess on the
go-
lake.
Yeah.
Oh
Right-
yeah,
right
that'd
by
be
the lake.
different.
Just before Oakville.
Yes.
We asked you that 15%
Yeah.
is about is a footprint or
That's-
is it a total?
No, for the footprint. The building envelope is,
Yeah.
is the footprint.
What about the height restrictions? Like,
No, not. I mean, I'm not saying there's no height restrictions, but
Of
I've never
course.
seen anything in Haliburton bigger than your below grade. Could you walk out your main level and then your secondary above that? I've never seen a 3-story cottage. I don't know more
what
than
if
that.
someone's built observation tower? I'm joking, but
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are some.
Yeah, there's bylaws. There's municipal bylaws that allow and disallow what you're doing. Like Sir Sam's is building an observation tower because they're trying to bring the fall market to see the leaves. They're building a Dorset fire tower structure at the ski hill at the top. You can call the Eagle's Nest. That permit would have probably been laid out in the building zoning for that. I know that there's zoning bylaws that disallow lots of things. So I had a customer or a client who bought 15 acres up in Algonquin Highlands because he's a gunsmith. I made a mistake here. I'm being quite honest with you. That I assumed that when you bought 15 acres, you could fire a shotgun or a gun anytime you wanted. And people do. People they fire guns all the time, but not like for an hour every day trying to sight in your rifle. And there is a firearms bylaw that you cannot fire a firearm in Algonquin Highlands if it's a rural residential zoning. If you have rural zoning, you can. So guess what?
Farm.
The neighbor is rural. He's rural residential, and he was not happy. He sent me a picture of the bylaw enforcement notice covered in shot. A little bit aggressive. The good news is it forced him into a different career, into property management, and he's doing very well. But I'm thankful.
So you gotta go to farmland. It can be farm residential, rural.
Yeah, or just not fire your gun every minute. Like so,
Okay.
it's based on complaints. So
But
the
still
neighbors
not allowed.
complain.
If you want to put
Yeah,
a ranch
and people
on it.
do.
Okay.
And people do. And I fired my 22 with my son,
Yeah.
but we're not doing it all the time every night. So
Yeah.
this guy's case was he's an aggressive attitude, like personality. So to spite the bylaw enforcer officer, he kept doing it, and it didn't. He got cease and desist pretty quickly with OPP.
So you're saying
Yeah.
By the time we're talking about the kind of stories, that we have friends on the
Thornbury.
Yeah.
close to Thornbury, Georgian Bay, whatever. And there was like they go to the road today, like there's expensive properties on the water,
Yeah.
and it's like a dead end.
Yeah.
And then from there you go, and there was a piece of land
Yeah.
which they developed like 6 lots. The first lot they were building not a cottage, a house. I can tell you like 14 feet height, like a story, 14 feet height
ceilings,
ceiling.
All
Steel
glass.
beams, like
Cantilever?
cantilevers, like all kind
Cantilevers,
of
yeah.
glass, whatever.
Yeah.
And there were rumors that this is like a kind of who was the owner? It was like kind of not the drug dealers or whatever, like some kind of
These
bikers,
bikers.
whoever or whatever. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
This property, we know now when before the fact, somebody blew it. Like there was a fire, but it was initiated by the explosion, and which was initiated, let's say, close to Peter, but someone somewhere completely not inside,
Remote.
remotely the blow up. And so we went there. It's like a mixed, like a twin, like all the the metal work. Like it's nothing right now. You could see like almost 3-story because they dig out.
Is it crime scene? Is this crime scene?
And it's like waiting because they're gonna, because the other lots are not developed yet. You can sell probably, and so they investigating. It's gonna take another maybe year or two. It's already 2 years in investigation. It's insane, because people.
So do you think that someone was protesting what they built, or is it just a personal?
Who knows? I don't
personal?
know. Maybe the personal.
No, we think that it was something inside.
It's almost.
Oh, you mean like a gas leak?
No,
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 oh,
no,
no,
it
no,
was
oh,
like,
inside job.
Inside job.
yeah, like
Well,
who
in the
was the
90s,
owner, and it was
in the 90s in Muskoka, it was like every weekend when you town and country, where you get your gas.
Yeah.
It was amazing the number of cottages that went up in smoke
Well, didn't that place down right by
Yeah.
Port Carling, the
Yeah, right by the,
restaurant?
right by the famous golf course there.
Yeah, Diamond in the Rough or whatever it was. Yeah.
The,
Yeah,
family, the family happened not to be there that weekend.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought you were going to ask me that if you want to build something that looks a little bit strange or unorthodox, the Committee of Adjustments of the municipality can approve things that might not be per right in the zoning. So you're talking about cantilevered and glass and high ceilings. I imagine things can be done. It's all a matter of the municipality. If you're brave enough to bring a proposal to the municipality, it's up to them to say yes or no, and usually that involves talking to neighbors and things
because it was almost finished. They waited until it's finished, whoever it was, because someone had to plant some material.
Maybe he didn't pay his. I was just listening to the Sherman
Oh, yeah.
podcast,
It's still
and I didn't realize that Barry Sherman, after he built his '80s mansion, he sued every builder on it to get his money back.
So who knows who
So
was.
basically, he sued either out of
So
spite
this
or out of
million
business.
property,
Got the money
worth
back.
millions property looked like this last year after the explosion.
Yikes! Okay, not a propane
How
explosion.
did you?
I will click the pictures.
So to summarize, like
Yeah, yeah.
buying a home in your area.
Yeah.
So you said the expenses would be somebody has to go there. So you need to have a property manager if you're not there, right? Because
Yeah.
it needs to
There's
be
few houses
visited
behind our
at
fence.
least once every 5
To
days.
satisfy your insurance policy, you should have eyeballs on your property, a neighbor, but you need to be able to prove that to an insurance. If you have a leak, if you have a snow load, fire, but yeah. So usually there's cottage services that you can do to do that. Property managers, or if you can get up there and use it as your residence.
And is that expensive? Would you say it's like 5% a month or?
I'm not sure. So what my wife does is she manages properties that are rented, and part of that rental is she drives by and takes a look once a week. But there's services. I'm not sure how much it would be. It wouldn't be It wouldn't be a huge amount. It would be whatever you negotiate with your provider.
Yeah, what about services? Like I know for Airbnb you need cleaners
Yeah.
and
Yeah, so
she does everything.
I think there's a huge opportunity in Haliburton for everything. Trades, there's a shortage of trades, a shortage of, how do I get into this?
School teachers. So-
Yeah, shortage of school teachers now. Haliburton County is growing to the point where people want to build and live there, but there's not the infrastructure to support the rate that it needs to grow.
We
And-
have that here too.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So there, I tell my students all the time, because I teach careers as well, that if you have the right mentorship, you can get a cleaning business, or a cottage watch business, or a property management business, and do very well. If you show up on time and have a good attitude and do good work, those three things, amazingly enough, are pillars for success.
It's hard to get good people up there.
Without sounding judgmental, Haliburton does have a personnel problem.
Yeah, Muskoka's really bad.
I don't want to say too much. I think you can read between the lines.
Well,
Yeah.
most people now, when they renovate or do their cottage, they don't even use the local talent anymore. They actually bring people in from the city.
Yeah.
And they say, just stay there, do the
So
work.
I suggested that I have lots of business owner friends, and they can't keep roofers. They can't keep anyone. Dairy Queen up there. They can't keep people. Why? Well, they have nowhere to live. There's a housing shortage. Well, why don't you build and buy a duplex? Well, the cost of building is $400 a square foot just for a basic linoleum, duplex or something. It's like there's all these things that are hard to do to solve the problem.
But on top, there's a bad attitude.
Yeah.
And because I know when I used to do my roof, when one of the neighbors would get his roof done,
Yeah.
the roofer would show up at 10 and leave at 2.
Yeah, I gotta run into town.
They wouldn't-
Yeah,
they
I
just
gotta run in.
left.
I gotta run in. So my friends who own a reputable business, they're great business people. They will pay some of their employees on a Friday, and they won't show up till the next Wednesday.
What?
And they can't fire them because they have no one else to do the work.
That's normal.
That is normal.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were gonna ask me something.
No, because you said $100 per square foot. and
No,
it's-
no. I said
No, 400. he said.
I was saying 400. 400
Yeah, that's why I.
for a nice home
Yeah.
that you might want to rent out. If you were to go up, granite counters, hardwood, then you're well into $500 a square foot.
Plus you
Yeah.
gotta pay for the land as well.
People aren't going to rent stuff with granite countertops.
Well, pardon?
I disagree
They,
with that.
no, they wouldn't.
I
They wouldn't
disagree
rent.
with that.
Standards.
Because
Yeah.
they can do a
Tons
lot
of
of
them on
damage. I mean,
Airbnb
I've
right
seen
now.
And
Yeah,
there's
because
luxury
you-
rentals that people are renting. So back to my mom's cottage,
Yeah.
her neighbor rented out, and we couldn't believe it. We looked it up.
Yeah.
$25,000 a weekend.
Yeah.
Because you better bet it's granite countertops and hardwood and everything. So there's a rental market for all these types of houses.
Really hard because My brother used to rent his cottage out.
Yeah.
We used to,
Yeah, so
good
it's,
people.
it's hard to do if you're the renter, if you're the
Yeah.
person owning it, because you
but
you don't
he
want
had-
to be fixing granite chips in your counter. I get that.
Well, he was just very careful who he rented to, and he
Yeah.
got good people.
Yeah.
But, just to, I mean, I've seen the parties there, and you wouldn't.
I don't want to take much more of your time. I'm happy to sit and talk, but my main message is I want to do business with you. I want to have access to your clients to work with you, save you the drive. Every guy who it was that said it, it's too far to drive. Someone said that.
Some of your cards.
Someone said it was too far to drive. That's where I come in. I'm happy to do that and make you money, make your clients happy, and we can all be successful.
I don't think any agent coming from Toronto going up north does his clients any favor by showing properties up there.
Neither do I.
I think you need a local.
Or listing.
Yes.
Or listing. I'm finding that now. I have a client who specifically asked me to
You
list.
do a terrible job, because
Yeah,
they don't do the stuff that they have to do.
Yeah, and I'm listing a place in Whitby, which I don't want to list because I can't provide the services that I would. It takes me 2 hours to drive down for an open house, and guess what? I have 3 kids, so I'm not doing an open house.
Yeah.
And one
I
thing
should
that-
have given it to the local agent, but
Yeah.
he wanted me to list it, so I did.
And one thing I would say is, Ryan is not afraid of actually sharing listings because
Oh, yeah.
if you know the community over there is very tight with their own MLS
Yeah.
systems and whatnot.
Yeah.
I mean, he put me on a search list and I'm getting everyday emails,
Yeah,
right? So that's something that if you wanna, and I gave him 2 referrals and he called right away and,
Mhm.
they're receiving listings already.
So,
So, one thing that I said that I was gonna do and we're doing is, the ones that are, for example, price reduced, I push them on my own website to people that I have in my CRM. So you can do like a weekend special or something, just try to promote property out there that, for $700,000 sounds pretty good.
yeah.
Even though they've
But a
never
lot of
been
the
there.
properties,
But it's still kind of promoted, and then if somebody has interest, then refer them to Ryan.
And please work together with me on that because sometimes I need a nudge to say, I need my weekly, deal
Right.
in Haliburton. I need a kick in the pants to
That's
get
right.
that back to
but a
you.
lot of those good properties, they don't hit the MLS system. Because people don't, because of who they are, they don't want people.
But they're not on the Toronto MLS; they're in the local MLS.
So a couple comments there. I'm new to this enough that I realize I need to work with people, so I'm happy to work. When you told me that there's a closed, exclusive community in Bracebridge, maybe I was naive, but I thought that was strange, but maybe that is the case. In Haliburton and there's lake associations, and sometimes. Like I've tried at the beginning of my career to join these lake associations as the realtor, and they will block you. They do not want real estate agents doing that. But my point is that some of these lake associations can market properties to themselves. Did you hear that Jim is selling the cottage? Do you have any friends that want to buy because they want to control who's on the lake?
Yeah.
That happens a little bit, but at the end of the day, you want to get the best dollar for your client, and putting that on the market is what people do. So in Haliburton, most often our matrix is the resource that all the agents use to bring their buyers in. Yeah. Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. I'm Ryan. Yeah.
But I will take some cards.
Yeah, so my cards are there. Definitely, please reach out if you'd like to work together. And if I have anyone buying condos in Etobicoke, I don't. Although some of the places I passed on Islington look great. Is that the Kingsway? Would that be the Kingsway? Like some of those big estate homes?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's Princess Anne Manor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice spots. So that's my spiel, and please reach out. Ryan Merritt it's Hugh Ryan Merritt personal on Facebook, or Ryan Merritt Royal LePage for real estate stuff. My website is the Cottage team, soon to be branded as Educated Decisions. A lot going on. There's a lot going on. Yeah.
Thank you very
And
much.
please leave your card if you can.
It's just again,
Yeah.
the question because we can only check, for our time we check MLS, yes?
Yeah.
So you're saying that, let's say certain properties, they only exist on the local
Yes.
board, but why, I think it makes sense that they advertise on MLS here, yes? Because most likely people will come to buy from
Yeah.
Toronto and area.
So
yes?
when I list, and I only just, because I'm new, so I just did my Whitby one was the first time I've ever put an interboard listing together,
Yeah.
because I just didn't know how to do it. And my secretary said, you should put it on Trev. Like, how do you do that? So I did it.
Let's put it.
In the past, yes, if I'm listing a cottage in Haliburton, Muskoka, I would be putting it on Trev as well. It's $100, and that's what I would do.
Because I think
All
here,
homes we saw, they were on MLS, although we found something on Realtor, and I didn't expect that I'm going to find this on MLS, the number of MLS. And I was talking to the agent first before we went, and he said, we can have listing on MLS. Just put the address, and it's on MLS also. So sometimes when you look at the Realtor, you think that it's not going to be on MLS, but actually now a lot of agents from there, they share and they put on MLS.
you want to check the commission, obviously, whether you
Yeah, but I've dealt with other Muskoka
Is that the
agents.
standard, by the way, the 2 point? So someone mentioned that
There's no such a thing now as a standard.
because you're competing with every other agent. In
Yeah.
cottage country, it's 2.5,
Yeah,
You're not-
that's what I said, but it's
Yeah.
2.5.
like
for
each, right?
Because
Yeah.
I've actually communicated with other Royal LePage agents in the Muskoka area, for example. They will not give you listing information, right? Because they want to keep it to themselves. So, yeah, I mean, good luck.
Come to
trying
me
find-
then, I'll give you listing information.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, he's been providing me with that, and I'm like, this is great. I mean, because I can
Yeah.
see the listings, and right, and it's not that I'm gonna go there, but it's just that if I have people that are interested in cottages, I want to at least pass them some information,
Yeah.
right? But
If anyone has just a little last bit, if you have any clients looking in Georgian Bay, tell them that they better be comfortable with snakes. There's rattlesnakes in this province. they're in Georgian Bay.
thank you so much.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I know
so
I
much.
talked
Thank
a lot,
you.
but
Well, I think it's a good idea. You came here, it's very smart.
yeah,
I
it's
think it's a very good idea.
for me, yeah, but it's also hopefully working together with you.
So how
Because I
long
would
did it
never,
take
I would
to
never
come
show a
here?
property up north.
You would, yeah. You said that you would never show up north.
So for you, how long did it take to
Yeah,
come here?
it took me about 2.5 hours to get to Vaughan, and then I slowed down. It took me about 40 minutes to get from where I live
So where are you coming from?
Haliburton.
Ah,
Yes,
Wow.
yes. Cross 118 to Bracebridge, straight down 120 kilometers an hour the entire way
Until you hit
until I hit Vaughan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like Canada's Wonderland-ish. Yeah.
and when we were showing you had an issue like I said, like you say you wouldn't go to Cottage because we don't have a winter tires, So I said, so and it was start snowing.
You
I
need
said,
winter
"Gee,"
tires.
because
There's so much. I don't want to get into another thing, but just one of the benefits of having me up there is there are lakes where the cottage looks great, the waterfront looks great, but what you don't see in the pictures is to get from your car to the water to the cottage in the middle is a 100-foot staircase.
yeah.
It's because some of these lakes, the
Yeah.
slope
Yeah,
is just
yeah.
the grade is just so steep that like why
We
would you
were
buy it?
renting in Muskoka in Hansville,
Yeah.
a cottage like this.
Skeleton
You would
Lake?
Fairy Lake.
Oh yeah, that's where
Yeah.
Beautiful.
we're on Fairy. My in-laws are on Fairy Lake. They have 5 acres on Fairy Lake.
Yeah.
Oh, this
It
was,
was
something
so
like 6
beautiful.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
so close to Hansville and
Yeah.
so close from the main
Yeah.
road,
And
89, right?
a 3-lake chain or 4-lake chain.
Oh, beautiful.
And then you said rustic. It was really the house. Something was built in 1939 or 40, something like this. Only made of wood.
Yeah.
We met the bear on the
Septic.
property. The bear, the huge
Okay.
Oh, the bear. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Quite huge,
Bears.
Not, maybe not mama
They're
bear.
Yeah.
very,
You're
you know,
scared.
You
They're
go to
all
Maple.
big.
Yeah, the bears in downtown.
Downtown Powell.
It was the year that apparently they had a lot because we were going to Hansville to the Dutch bakery.
Oh yeah, the Don's Bakery.
Yeah.
Oh no, the Dutch.
I don't remember,
Yeah.
but it's
In Bala. Yeah.
they came there, but previous owners, maybe not the present one. They came from Holland, right? So, and we were buying the blueberry pie because they are very good pies. And she was saying that be careful, don't go to the woods
Yeah.
because there is a lot of berries this year.
They also like blueberry pie.
Yeah, they banned the spring bear hunt.
Well, the one
But we
thing
were
about bears
surprised
is
because
that
it
they're,
was so close